Hey, you guys, my name is Kimberly Lowe. I'm from Southwest Virginia. My family settled the area in the 1600s. I'm here to speak to you as a mom and talk to you about my personal story, which I really don't do often on the campaign trail because this is totally a non-political speech. And I want to warn you about what's happening in this country and what we can do to stop it. And I'm going to pull Janice in here at the end to discuss this stuff. So I had to take my phone off of airplane mode. I have a boyfriend for the first time in 10 years. I've been a single mom raising my kids alone, and I left him at a picnic. I met him at a picnic in the 6th district. So if you get a weird text up here that says, "I love you, baby," be like, "Yeah, girl, finally," right? This is kind of funny. Sorry. It's my life. So I'm a single mom. My kids now are 18. Ava just turned 18. The boys are 13. Ari just turned 16. 18 is a rough age. That's all I've got to say. But I had a pretty normal life. When I was 23, I met the guy that I married. We had 3 kids together. When I was pregnant with our 3rd child, he kind of lost his mind a little bit and wouldn't get mental health help. And by the time the kids were 6, 8, and 10, he sent me an email from Canada and said, "I'm leaving." And honestly, it was great because I wasn't brave enough to leave when I probably should have. But what worried me is if we go through a court situation, the courts are going to give someone who's very violent and abusive some type of custody over my children. He filed for divorce. I went through, it's been a big nightmare. I'm still 7 years into court paperwork. I've learned so much about the court system. See, ooh, I am so sorry. We'll never know. That cat is not out of the bag. Dear Lord, I'm so sorry. Okay, great. I finally have a life, people. Yeah. So I went into the court. I know. Oh gosh, it is. That's just great. Okay. So I go to court and I think, okay, my husband has a good job. He makes good money. The kids and I are going to be okay. And I have pictures for the judge and stuff. Like, these are my beautiful children. They were so cute at this age. That was that year. That was later in the year in 2017. And my children's pictures were missing out of their court file. And I thought, well, how weird is that? So I went to the clerk's office. Nice ladies work there. I'm like, my kids' pictures are not in my file. And I started to get more and more suspicious. I went to the Board of Supervisors. I went to the sheriff's office. I'm like, something is really strange here. I had a farm in Brunswick County where all of this happened. And I started to have a vehicle in front of my house all the time taking pictures. And this went on for about a year and a half. And in the meantime, I started to realize that me as a mom, I was not alone, and that this was happening to parents all over the place. And I actually discovered a trafficking ring in Southside, Virginia, through the Department of Social Services, the person running it, other organizations funded by you and I, there in the same area, leading all the way to Alaska. Knew the traffickers in Alaska, knew the people who had previously been trafficked. So I did my due diligence. I went to the Commonwealth's attorney where she laughed me out the door, went to the sheriff's office where they ignored me, called the FBI that said, "Ma'am, you're wasting our time." And that's kind of what spurred me onto all of this. My kids were a target. We didn't have a normal life. It got to a point where we were not turning our lights on in our house at home. I was parking my car behind the house, hiding all the time. I homeschooled. I didn't leave my kids anywhere. We were really careful when we were out because we were targeted, and they will target. And a lot of times they are actually following children from birth to see where they are to target them. So I'm here to talk to you about child trafficking, how we stop it, where is it happening, and who our largest traffickers are. We can stop this. Everyone wants to talk about the border. No one wants to talk about American children. So what I ended up doing is I became an advocate. I started to help families across the entire nation. When people look up CPS, people come to me. We have worked diligently to provide advocates for parents across the nation. People contact us. We can provide people and attorneys across America. Let parents know what their rights are, because the reality is that these are not constitutional courts. These are admiralty courts. We have great laws in Virginia. Nobody's following them. We have a judicial review committee. That's a joke. We have a bar association, which is essentially the cartel. It's a huge mess. There's a lot that we have to fix. But we have been able to get a lot of children home. The problem is once they take a child through the court system and through CPS, it's extremely hard to get them back. But we have worked diligently to get them back. I want to tell you a case really quick in West Virginia. A mom reached out to me. The case horrified me so bad that there's so many kids that we're losing in so many counties that I have an entire funnel system to help parents who still contact me on a daily basis. I have to funnel them through an advocate I have in Alaska, and we have an entire program to help our parents. But she called me up. She was married, happily married, 6 beautiful children, homeschooled in West Virginia. West Virginia does not like homeschoolers because, they need their government control. And the guy who worked at the sheriff's office was sending some pictures of himself and took a liking to her. So she contacted the sheriff's office and said, I'd really like this to stop. Well, one day the police showed up at her home with her children with a guardian ad litem who happened to be the girlfriend of the guy who was sending pictures. And she said, "Whore, you're never going to see your kids again." The police busted the door down, took her 6 children at gunpoint, and she has never seen her children again. They held her bond at $120,000, which went to the sheriff's office. Don't know where that money went. The family sold the home to pay the bond to get her out. She still does not have her children back. I went there to hold a rally. The people that had a rally, they arrested grandparents later and went back and got them. There are so many people trafficking children on a high basis, and we are losing so many children. And this is all fixable if we can fix our court systems and change a couple federal policies. We've done rallies all across the United States. Part of the problem is raising awareness so we can get more people involved. Our largest traffickers are law enforcement, schools, hospitals, and they're using our court system to do this. It is a very scary time to have a baby in a hospital. A very scary time because they are taking babies out of hospitals, they're taking them out of schools through something really horrible called mandatory reporting, which there's only 2% of substantiated cases out of phone calls that are made to these hotlines. Out of those 2%, I can tell you most of it's bogus because I help all of these parents, and they're simply trafficking children because a lot of people can't fight the system. This is something that's been going on for decades, and it's all planned out. They removed God. They've changed our history. They took over our schools. They're invading our borders, and they have been destroying the nuclear family for a long period of time. They took all the professionals out of court in the 1980s. They are using people like psychologists and the entire business as a weapon against people. Whoever pays the most money can get a psychological evaluation in Virginia, and you're the one who gets the kids, and they're going to find a problem with the other parent. I wish I had a longer cord for this. You guys are just so far away. So Virginia is actually a handful of states that has no uniformity across their CPS and their Department of Social Services. It's only one of 9 states. That means what happens in this county is not what happens in a different county. And so it's really hard to regulate what's actually happening. We do have an ombudsman now. He's someone who has oversight. Parents can go to someone now in the state and complain, but that doesn't mean that is an effective answer as well. And what about parental rights? We have a nice parental rights law. No one is following it. When the governor came in, he re-emphasized this parental rights law with an executive order. But still to this day, even in a Republican control, this isn't about politics, General Assembly, our children are still being raped in school without parents knowing it. Our children are being trafficked in school without parents knowing it, and all the stuff that Ann talked about. So about a month ago, I submitted a brief to the United States Supreme Court as a non-attorney to challenge the rights of parents over the state. I'll never get anywhere because I'm pro se, but I'm still fighting the system. 40 to 50% of marriages, first time and in divorce, 60 to 70% second time. I wonder how it's going to go for me if I ever get married. I'm just kidding. But the problem is when you sign a contract with the state, and in doing so, the state is going to control your children and your assets. It is a over $50 billion industry. Because of that, more than 22 million American families have been separated due to poor family court decisions. This was statistics from 10 years ago. That means that a mom never sees their child again, or a child never sees their dad or their grandparents. It is the destruction of the American family. We are paying for that with our taxpayer dollars. Almost 1,000 children have been murdered by the hands of their abusers due to court-ordered visitation. This is a picture of Kaden. I've met with her mom. I've met with many parents across the nation who have lost their child due to this. She walked in and found her daughter murdered. Her daughter was alive enough to try to get out with just blood across the floor, thanks to these poor family court judges and the horrors that are happening in our courts. And it is all with purpose, all for money, and to destroy the family and to destroy this nation, because the family is the fabric. Military courts as well. Military courts are covering up what's happening with service members. I've got a mom who, this has been going on for 3 years now. She had video footage of her husband molesting her 2 little girls. She went to the school to pick up her girls one day and they were gone. And now she has to pay $750 a month to see them twice for 2 hours a month, while her husband continues to molest them. They come bruised, gashes, urinary tract infections, you name it, but she has not been able to obtain her girls back. They continue to be molested. We're losing 1 American child per minute to Child Protective Services. That is disgusting and fixable. 1 child per minute. You are spending $29 billion of your taxpayer dollars having children removed out of the hands of their families. And the trauma that it creates for everyone is horrendous. And if you're fighting for your children, you're never going to fight for your freedoms in this country. You're going to be so traumatized, you're not going to be able to get back up. 98% of American children who have been trafficked had some type of interaction with CPS and foster care. 55 foster care children per day go missing. West Virginia, they don't even know how many kids they have in foster care and where they are. For example, West Virginia is a mess. West Virginia is the nation's #1 state for child removals. That's why I use it as an example. And Southwest Virginia and West Virginia have very similar numbers. What's the outcomes of family separations? Higher crime rates, higher incarceration rates, poorer school outcomes, chronic illness. A lot of these kids, when they get out, they have no homes. A lot of these kids end up in a higher abuse situation. They end up with all sorts of sexual assault and abuse. I am not saying that adoption is bad. I am saying that a lot of times adoptive parents don't understand the situation that the kids came out of. A lot of times they're lied to. And just because they're going into another home doesn't mean that it's better. Usually they're better off in their own homes. And my point is we need to work on family reunifications. So yeah, they're likely to be sexually assaulted, abused, and trafficked once they're removed from their family. And look at the cost. We're paying for these costs. You want to talk about a budget and having money for other programs? Lifetime cost is $831,000 per child for non-fatal incidents, $16.6 million per child for fatal incidences of maltreatment, and estimated $428 billion for substantiated cases, $2 trillion for the number of investigated instances. I mean, these are like all the court costs and everything all together. Imagine if we used that money to help society and to build our families up instead of hurting our children. So everybody gets money that gets involved. There's one bill, it's a federal law, the Adoption and Safe Family Act. That's where, there's different titles. Title 4E is where the money is funneling into all the different states. $29 billion gets funneled in. That goes in as an incentive to remove children. Social workers are making money when children are removed. Everyone in the court system is getting money. They will take children from poor families and make them pay child support for the children that they have taken when they can barely put food on their table. And if they don't, then they go to jail. That's Title 4D. Anytime a judge gives child support out, that judge is making 60 cents on the dollar. Everybody in the entire system with that one child makes money. It's disgusting. Bar association's completely complicit. There is no one to go to. There is no one to go to. They are all complicit in all of this, in the trafficking of our babies. This goes back to the Adoption and Safe Family Act. What I'd like to do, it's very, very simple, is we can reallocate the funds from Title 4E into Title 4B. Title 4B is money for family reunification. Then we're going to have the money to work on housing situations, generational poverty, addiction issues, education, et cetera, et cetera. So the money's there, we just have to move it around. And this goes back to the hotline. We have to end the mandatory reporting in hotlines because a lot of these calls are like neighbors calling when they're pissed off at somebody or in a high contested divorce or custody situation. And people are not seeing their kids ever again once they're taken. There's zero oversight, and Janice is going to be really good for this because there's a lot of different ways to approach this. There's a lot that we could do at the state level, even if we're ineffective at the federal level. I've discussed with the Attorney General's office having someone in each Commonwealth's attorney's office to have oversight over the lower courts because it is total bogus that judges and attorneys are following any laws. They are not following the Constitution. They are committing fraud. They're doing whatever they want for cash. You can appeal it all day long. Very few cases get through. I took my stuff to the United States Supreme Court year 7 because I was like, no, the Constitution means something and we have parental rights. And I'm fighting forced psychological evaluations on my children after all of these years because that's what they do to remove your kids. And my kids have the right to not be poked and prodded when their father has not seen them in 7 years. Like, they are happy, leave my family alone, please. So, I'm still fighting this entire system. In Virginia, they will waive your signature to put you and force you into contract. They did that to me many times. They actually hid an order to auction off my home where the kids and I live, waived my signature. It showed up later and they denied my appeal. But obviously, I'm still fighting for my house. This is still going on. It just never ends. They're doing all sorts of closed hearings. They're doing ex parte orders with no due process, making decisions for you, stealing your assets. They're doing this as elder abuse and guardianships. They're putting your grandma and your grandpa and your relatives and all these things and cleaning them out. Didn't matter that you had power of attorney. Welcome to the Bar Association and attorneys. There's no transparency. And again, I think that is something that we could fix even if it's on a Virginia scale where we have some type of due process and oversight. They're simply not constitutional courts at all. And we know that it's going to take all of us to transform the system to regain our republic because these were never constitutional courts. So this is the hard part. What can you do? Janice has a lot of ideas. I have more detailed presentations if you have a problem, and I can go through everything with you. Knowing some of this, you know not to become a victim. If CPS shows up at your door, call someone else before you open up the door. Be aware when you leave a child at school or you have to go to the doctor that there's a chance that they're going to take your child and you're going to get targeted. It's not safe for our children anymore. I can provide an advocate and free resources if you guys ever have a problem. What I would recommend if you do want to do something is you can contact your federal legislator. We just talked to Ben about this. Amber did. Amber's my staff. Am I allowed to say your story at all? I help a lot of parents who have lost their kids who are good parents. We've got someone in Virginia and the Patriot Movement who's pretty big over in Fauquier County. She lost all of her children a long time ago. Amber recently lost all of her kids. She had protective orders in North Carolina in full custody, and he came to Virginia, and Virginia ignored the protective orders and everything. Oh, other way.
in North Carolina.
There you go.
And I was supposed to have address confidentiality. The kids were abused, sexual abuse, second-degree burns, eye lacerations, 4 years of negligence. So I went to the Supreme Court, which is how I shockingly ran into Kim. And I decided to file a class action We the People lawsuit for all of these agencies to fix the system. And 5 days later, when I took my son to receive mental health care in North Carolina, never left the state because he needed assistance for illicit substances, they filed fraud, false petitions against me, not serving me with wrong birth dates of my kids, with wrong names, all the way through, filed police orders, and met me in Asheville, North Carolina, and stated, we have no summons for you, but if you don't cooperate, we can take your kids with all force.
So what they'll do is they will try to make a situation that's not contested because they know the non-abusive parent is going to spend a lot of money into the system to bail their kids out. So if you and us, we want to stop the trafficking of American children, we have to change some federal regulations. We have to turn these into constitutional courts. In doing so, we're going to have to go back to the beginning in order to get real professionals in, trauma-informed individuals, because the whole thing is a sham and a hoax. And Janice has been doing fantastic work for a long time. It's something where we're going to have to work all together. And I fight so hard because I love children, and they are our future. They are what's next, and they do not deserve this. You should be able to have your child and love your child and have a happy life. You shouldn't be fighting for your child. I shouldn't have to hide my car behind my house with the lights off and be scared. You know, even at the age of 17, kids are not safe in the system. I mean, Ava turned 18. I was like, happy court graduation day, because it's never going to end. And I get pulled into court all the time. Recently, he filed bankruptcy where I'm not even a party to the case. Mortgage wasn't in my name. I got sanctioned $51,000 when my husband abandoned me, falsified child support, left me with 100% of debt, and I have the kids. So, I mean, it's never ending. So all of next week, when I actually am going to Europe to this really cool summit where we're fighting the World Economic Forum, which is kind of along our lines, right, in London, instead of planning for that, I'm spending the week doing court paperwork because I had to sue a judge because he's not following the Constitution. I've got that case. I'm having to sue the mortgage company because they're trying to take the house not following federal laws. I've got to appeal this nonsense $51,000 sanction, and guess what? I have everything in an irrevocable trust. You want to protect your assets? I have nothing in my name. No bank account, no cars, no home, nothing. And because of the court stuff, I changed my status. You can do that under the Constitution, and it has served me very well because I have diplomatic immunity. You know, I mean, I've had fake assault charges through politics at the Texas border, and I was able to get out all of this stuff because I changed I am allegiant to the Republic, not to the Corporation of America or to these admiralty courts, period. So anyway, thank you for your time. I'm here for Q&A. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm confident that we can stop the trafficking of American children through a couple policy changes and through awareness. Do you guys have questions? Well, at least I've got a boyfriend now. Loan after 10 years. I hope I keep him.
Okay, did you go to Assemblies of America to get your sovereignty back, to get out of the Social Security system? Is that how you did it?
How did you survive?
Well, that's all fine because everything's in a trust.
Okay.
Any money goes to a trust. I sent everything to the. I sent everything to the DOJ originally. I did this years ago, you know.
You could do
and they received it.
Trust. You can put everything into a trust, but at the same time, you can get rid of your Social Security number. You can come back to a naturalized.
See, I'm not brave enough to go around with like no tag on my car because I don't want to be stopped. Do you know what I mean? Because they're probably looking for me for something. Right now it comes up in the name of a trust, not in my name. And I'm like, yeah, I can drive and not have my tags run.
Like you can trust the court to cover you, right?
It's not expensive to do either, guys. It takes about 6 months to a year. We're all looking into it now. Barbara and I are looking into it now on how we can get out of the system. And there's also a way to get your Social Security money back that you've been putting out there since the time you started. So there's a lot that we've learned because this is the Great Awakening. This is the Great Awakening. This is where God reached down and said, okay, my people.
We are the next step into restoring the republic. This is us right here. We are the new government. This is us to fix it and do it. Nobody's coming in to save us. This is it. And we're going to do it. We're going to save our children. We're going to have our freedoms. And we're going to stay alive when we're doing it.
Amen.
Right?